Shalom Aleichem, Erev Tov. We are continuing in our Rambam classes in the lives of the students of Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. We're now up to the life of Rabbi Shimon Ben Netanel. Rabbi Shimon, the son of Netanel. Rabbi Shimon Ben Netanel is a Chacham about whose life we know very little. Almost like Rabbi Yosef Kohen. I tried by Rabbi Yosef Kohen to extract as much information as I possibly could about his life so you would have it. And the same I'm going to try to do for Rabbi Shimon Ben Netanel. Let's open up our encyclopedias first. There's been interesting developments the last time I taught a class. I've been teaching you from this old encyclopedia over here, which you've been seeing copies of. This encyclopedia was redone into a newer edition that looks like this. It's 2 volumes, and it has lots of pictures and charts and all kinds of things inside of there, which is much nicer than the cryptic edition. They claim that this is the new and improved edition. I'm going to tell you the truth. In my life, I have learned not to trust anything that is new and improved. Usually, the rule is, if it wasn't broken, don't fix it. I don't know what was wrong with this one, that they had to improve this one. Very, very often in my life, I've bought books only to realize that the second edition is edited or censored, or things are cut out, or mistakes were put in that the previous person knew what they were doing and the second person thought was a mistake, and they erased it, they edited it. There's a book. This book is called Sefer HaBrit HaShanem. Don't get confused, Chevra. Who wrote the Sefer HaBrit HaShanem? What is the Sefer HaBrit HaShanem? Let me tell you what it's not. Okay, what is it not? What is a Sefer HaBrit not? Obviously, what am I not referring to? Obadiah, what am I not referring to? Which Sefer HaBrit am I not talking about? Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'akol nהיה b'doro.
When we do a break. You're not talking about nonsense called
Okay, Obadiah is right. I'm not talking about the Brit HaChadashah, the so-called New Testament. Yes? Obviously, let's be aware. Though there may be times in my classes that I will refer to this book, I'm not talking about this book, okay? When I talk about the book, the Sefer Brit HaShalem, which book am I talking about? Anyone know? Sefer HaBrit HaChadashah, Sefer Brit HaShalem, Sefer HaBrit HaShalem, Freudian slip, is a book written by an Ashkenazi Kabbalist, Rabbi Pinchas Horowitz of Vilna. This is a very important book. It's a very important book. Hara Peretz received this book as a young boy, maybe Elchanan and Andy's age, maybe a little older, maybe closer to 10. He received it as a gift from his father, who used to travel a lot for business. Hara Peretz's father was a wealthy man in Morocco. He traveled to Ashkenaz and came back with a book, gave it to Hara Peretz. Sefer HaBrit HaShalem is a book that is not studied very much at all. Because I like this book so much, I own 2 copies of it. The old edition and the new edition. Essentially, this book is a manual on how to get Ruach HaKodesh according to the Mekubalim. So how do you achieve divine inspiration? But don't run away from me right now. I'm not introducing you to Kabbalistic books. The problem with getting Ruach HaKodesh is that most of the people who claim that they have it are not qualified, at least not according to the Kabbalistic standard, of what one needs in order to receive Ruach HaKodesh. You see, aside from mastery of the whole Torah, all of the writings of the Chachamim, all of the different levels of spirituality the Mekubalim require, there's a whole other part of Ruach HaKodesh, according to the Kabbalists. I'm talking about according to the Kabbalists, specifically Rabbi Chaim Vital, the student of the Arizal, who wrote a book called Shaar Ruach HaKodesh, on how to get the Ruach HaKodesh. According to the Mekubalim, what else does somebody need before they can receive Ruach HaKodesh? All of Torah, yes, all of the writings of Chachamim, Midot, levels of spirituality.
Also have to be in a good mood.
Okay, in a good mood, those are prophets, but okay, let's say they have a good temperament. What else? What's a crucial part of being a Kabbalist and receiving the Ruach HaKodesh?
Is it also kind of like what the Tanya says about the person needs like God's special Ahava Rabbah, they called it, like God's bestowal upon them of the Spirit.
Okay, so obviously there's a part of this, like we mentioned by prophecy. If you remember by Baruch ben Neriah, we mentioned there's the desire to receive prophecy, and there's not always the choice to give prophecy to an individual. So I'm going to differentiate Ruach HaKodesh and prophecy, but you're all guessing things about prophecy. Tell me something about Ruach HaKodesh that there's a Kabbalistic requirement to receive Ruach HaKodesh.
In the middle of Ruach HaKodesh, you might find yourself losing your mind.
No, what do you need? What do you need for Ruach HaKodesh? Now what's going to happen to you get wrong? A prerequisite. You want to go to medical school. They require certain courses that you take beforehand.
You have to be trained.
Okay, trained in what?
I guess if it's written by Kabbalists, it would probably be a Kabbalistic.
Okay, so we mentioned Torah, Mishnah, Halakha, Kabbalah, fine, all of that. But what else does one need to know?
The fear of God.
Okay, we're all talking about midot. I'm going to tell you, the reason that you don't know how to guess this is because even the Kabbalah that you think you've studied, you didn't really study from real Kabbalists. It's very important what I'm saying. Today in the morning I had a conversation with somebody about Tu B'Shvat. You're all aware about the Sabbathian origins of Tu B'Shvat, and you're all aware that the original Kabbalists didn't celebrate Tu B'Shvat. And part of the conversation that I had today was, you cannot blame. You can blame the Mekubalim for the things the Mekubalim did. Yes, you can blame them for that. Meaning, if there are things that Kabbalists introduced, you can blame them. You cannot blame the Kabbalists for things they didn't do. That's a rule in general. You shouldn't blame people for things they didn't do. But the Mekubalim also, they can be, if you are of the inclination to make the Kabbalists your punching bag, that's your choice. But you can't punch them for things they didn't do. The Mekubalim, the prerequisite for receiving Ruach HaKodesh, is total and complete understanding of the natural world, science, medicine, geography, technology, mathematics, you name it. The Mekubalim require you to know it. How can you possibly be connected to something you don't know? The problem that Rabbi Pinchas Horowitz had was, as much as he wanted to teach people how to have Ruach HaKodesh, how in the world are you going to get all these people that are sitting in yeshivot in Vilna to learn sciences, history, geography, mathematics, in a system that doesn't provide such an education at all? Who's going to teach these young students or older students all of that? So he wrote the Sefer HaBrit HaShalem. It's 2 volumes. Volume number 2 is all about Torah, all about Halakha, all about psychology, all about Kabbalah, all about Ruach HaKodesh, all about Neshamot, all of that. You name it, it's there. But the first volume of the Sefer HaBrit, he spent years in libraries, traveling from place to place, to research books, whatever he could get his hands on. And he wrote a book, to the best of his abilities, on things like how a thermometer works. What is the mercury that is inside of a thermometer? How do clocks work? Sundials, animals, continents, countries, kings, water, evaporation. Rabbi Pinchas Horowitz wrote an entire manual, chapters and chapters and chapters, and only once you've mastered the first book does he let you read the second book. Listen, things have changed a little bit scientifically since he wrote this book. There are obviously things that need to be adjusted, concepts that maybe then were misunderstood, maybe they understood, we don't understand, all kinds of conversations you could have. This is not my forte. But the second half of the book is even more golden than the first half. In there, Rabbi Pinchas Horowitz shares all kinds of very deep things. But one thing he has is a tremendous critique on Ashkenazi Torah scholars. That's probably why they don't study his books in any yeshiva. You think, all the yeshivot are struggling, how do we teach secular studies to our children? We don't want them to study. Well, why don't you do it from the chief rabbi of Vilna? Maybe you study his book. No, we don't want it. Why? Because in there is a scathing rebuke of people who raise their children to be Torah scholars, to live off of tzedakah, not to have a profession, not to work, not to make their own living. It leads them to be dishonest people. It leads them to steal. Their wives have no food. Their children are suffering. The non-Jews look at them as parasites. The Chilul Hashem that it causes. So obviously a world in which they're trying to erase that part, the critique of their system, is not going to perpetuate the study of this book. I was very happy that a few years ago they published a new edition. Now why am I telling you about all of this? I told you that sometimes people correct other people's books and they're wrong when they correct those books. Rabbi Pinchas Horowitz has a rule. He asked that no one edit his book. Not even to unpack the acronyms. Like, sometimes it says Aleph Chaf, Im Ken. Leave it Aleph Chaf, maybe you're going to do it wrong. He said, whenever you come to correct a book, people are very quick. They edit, they erase a whole sentence, they write a new sentence. Then what happens? This editor didn't know as much Torah as the author. They thought they edited something. Now, 30 years later, 100 years later, 300 years later, we only have the edition of the book that was edited. The original is lost to us. And we know that the edition that we have is mistaken because someone tried to fix something that wasn't broken. All of this is just a side tangent. I'm going to remind you, this is the Beit HaMikdash. What is the Beit HaMikdash? The Beit HaMikdash is a place where you study. But what kind of study? A Beit HaMikdash is absolutely not a university. What's the difference between a university and a Beit HaMikdash? In the university, everything is dead. It's all packaged in boxes. Everything is, this is the way we think, this is the way we do, this is the way we write, this is the way we do. There's 45-minute periods. You have one professor teaches you this, one teaches you that, one to the next thing. In the Beit HaMikdash, the Torah is alive. Divrei Elohim Chaim Hem. It's the words of the living God. The Beit HaMikdash is very fluid. Something comes up, one of you asks a question before the class, and all of a sudden we find ourselves for the next 3 weeks talking about something we never planned to study right now. But that's how the Beit HaMikdash works. It's a living, breathing organism that is the Beit HaMikdash. The Beit HaMikdash cannot be sterile. The downfall of the American Jewish school system is that they're trying to teach people Torah in 45-minute periods, the same way they're trying to teach people math and science and history and literature. Imagine now you're sitting down to read a book. How long does it take for you to make your cup of tea, to find the right spot on the couch, to remember where you left off the book from, to get into the book? How long does it take you? To concentrate on what you're reading? 20, 30 minutes? Okay. You agree with him? The room has to go quiet a little bit. You have to 20, 30 minutes. All of a sudden, imagine, the bell's ringing, you have to go to the next class. How are you supposed to learn like that? How can my brain turns off, we're not doing math anymore, now we're doing Shakespeare. How do you do that? If I was in the middle of an equation, doesn't matter. Right now you're doing Aesop's fables now. The Beit HaMikdash doesn't work like that. You can spend 12 hours in a row on the same subject. And your coffee is included in that, by the way. That's part of learning also. I think we're so used to classes, we're not used to learning. And so all of this introduction was to tell you, because why not learn about Rabbi Pinchas Horowitz? I highly recommend, if you can, to go and research him and his writings. I once put out his pamphlet in Hebrew, the one about secular education. But he made a warning that people shouldn't publish parts of his book separate from the rest of his book. So I'm a little afraid of him. But there is someone who translated it into English, if I'm not mistaken, and if you need, you can message me after the class. I'll try to find it for you. B'ezrat Hashem. So we're now in the encyclopedia. I said I have 2 editions now because I don't know which one. So I'm going to keep sending you pictures of the new encyclopedia, but I will always double check it with the old one, at least for the next 5, 10, 12 Chachamim, just to figure out, is it accurate? Did they change anything for the better, for the worse? And then we'll run with the new one, B'ezrat Hashem. If you open up your encyclopedia, you should find yourself on page 300 and something. Anybody see which one it is? 345. Yes. Toda Rabba Ovadia. Rabbi Shimon Ben Netanel is the next in the chain of oral transmission of the Torah. So Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai has 5 students, remember that? One of the 5 students, Rabbi Shimon Ben Netanel. If you look in a little chart, he's in the first third, let's say, of the years of the Tanaim, the authors of the Mishnah.
I read the
Tana Bedor Hashani. He's a Tana in the second generation of the authors of the Mishnah. אחד מחמשת תלמידיו המובחרים של רבן יוחנן בן זכאי. He was one of the 5 most prominent students of Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. We mentioned Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai had many, many students. And we had a whole bunch of classes on why we say that he only had 5 students. These are the ones that really followed him. These are the ones that were willing to give their life for him. These are the ones that really understood him. Whatever we said there. On page 346, Rabo Shibecho Kireh Chet. His rabbi praised him that he was a Yereh Chet, that he was a fearer of sin. Haya Kohen, he was a Kohen. Uven Gamliel Hazdaken, Hisilo et Bito. And he was married into the family of Gamliel Hazaken, as mentioned in the Tosefta Avodah Zarah. Me'at me'od nishar mitorato u'mideotav. We have very little left from his actual teachings, the things that he taught us, his opinions. It's not one of those Chachamim you find him all over the place. If you put him into the search engine and you run Rabbi Shimon Ben Netanel, you're going to find a few things about it. Which means that in order to study him, we're going to have to really pull some strings together from different places. Maybe with your permission, you'll open up the PDF called Nachalat Avot by Rabbi Yosef Masas. And if you can tell me, it's page 500 and something, but I don't remember 500 and what. No, maybe 400 and something. 454, is that it? Guys. You go take it and go play in the kids' room. Rabbi Yosef Masas wrote this book. And he says, V'ata avo l'saper l'ma'alatchem. Look at the bottom of 454. I'm coming to tell you, honorary ones, Divrei Rabbi Shimon Ben Netanel. What are the honorary ones? Why is he saying? Who's he talking to? This book of Rabbi Yosef Masas and Perkei Avot was written after Shabbat when he gave his speeches to his community on Perkei Avot. When you start off a speech to the community, what do you usually say? Yeah, what do you usually start off your words with? Ladies and gentlemen, honored guests, beloved friends, dear relatives. That's what you say. Why do you speak like that? You want to be welcoming. You want to be warm. I know this is something that some people don't know, that when people come to visit you or you come to speak to people, you should be nice to them. It's a crazy concept. I know that it's crazy. But it would be very nice if people spoke to other people in a nice way. Especially rabbis and teachers, Chachamim, lecturers. Someone here listened to the video once told me that he'll never forget a certain speaker that the whole time he was speaking to the community was wagging his finger at them. You know who you are. This is something that is ridiculous. Why would I come to a speech the whole time you're wagging your finger at me? I'm not a dog. Don't talk to me like I'm a dog.
Because we need Musar.
Yeah, very good. So first give it to yourself. Rabbi Yosef Masas, when he's speaking to the community, he's trying to be kind. Moshe Rabbeinu gets punished for saying Shim'una,
You rebel.
Hamorim. Listen to me, you rebels. But were they rebels?
No.
Am Yisrael? What were we? Why would he call us rebels?
They were impatient. They were thirsty. They needed to drink.
Read our history from leaving Egypt until that moment. Look at how many times we rebel against HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Moshe Rabbeinu is simply calling us what we are. And our Chachamim view that as one of the greatest transgressions of Moshe Rabbeinu. Nobody.
Didn't he say? But wasn't it against? Didn't he say wasn't he taking it personally that they're rebelling against him?
So there's already commentary. There are all kinds of ways to understand what happened here with Moshe Rabbeinu. But everybody agrees he did something wrong. Everybody agrees. And most of us understand that he wasn't really, it wasn't uncalled for. The Jewish people were fine, even if it was from Moshe Rabbeinu. He's their leader. They're making his life miserable. How much can Moshe Rabbeinu suffer from the Jewish people? He's not Hashem. Hashem suffers for the Jewish people. Moshe Rabbeinu, how much does he have to put up with? You almost feel bad for Moshe Rabbeinu. And then you realize quickly, you're in a position of leadership. In a position of leadership, you don't get to throw tantrums at people. I mean, it can happen, but that's a mistake on your end. You're a parent. Sometimes I see parents, they're fighting with their children. I don't mean that their children are 20, the parents are. I mean like it's a 3-year-old and it's a 40-year-old and they're fighting with each other. Now, listen, in some cultures they have different ways to solve this problem. Right, Ovadia? Sometimes the slippers, the shoes, they come in. No. Yeah, but in some places, I don't mean how to shut down a child. I mean, why are you getting so offended from a little kid? You're walking down the street. A little kid says, booger brain. Oh, something stupid. Like, why are you? You're 40 years old. What are you fighting with a 3-year-old for? What's wrong with you? I want to tell you what's wrong with you. You're like in an all-out war with a child. But it happens all the time. I see it everywhere. But sometimes it happens also at home. What do you think? They say the hardest thing in life is to look at a miniature version of you, fighting with you. I look at my kids sometimes, I say, all those bad midot, I gave it to them. That's not them, it's me. Now I have to put up with me and you. But really, you're the parent here. As the parent, you're expected to show love, to stay calm, to care, to guide, to help. Sometimes helping is to tell the child, hey, don't argue right now. It's very important for you. But that doesn't matter. Why are you getting in a real fight with the child? You're a leader of the people. You know that not everybody listens in the people. You know that's how the people work. So now you're losing it at them? For which reason? Rabbi Yosef says, I'm telling you, honored members of my Kehillat. That's a very beautiful relationship for a Chacham to have with his community. You know, in the Sephardic world, rabbis were always called Chachamim. Yes, the word rabbi, we borrowed from the Ashkenazim. Yeah? Early in history, we used the word rabbi, but among our Chachamim was Chacham Mordechai, Chacham Obadiah, that's how it was. Sephardic Chachamim, especially in the Balkan region, the Spanish-speaking Jews, they had another name for the Chacham. Do you know what they called him? I think I read this from Rabbi Dr. Salomon Gaon. He was a famous Sephardic Chacham. You know what they called him? They called him Chaver Ha'ir. Obadiah, what's a Chaver? What is an Ir?
City.
A friend of the city. What is a friend of the city?
A friend of the city. Well, I mean, Spanish will mean someone that is well known, like one that is there, like.
It means he's not the enemy of the people. Yeah, I mean, Rabbi Gaon said that in Turkey, the Chacham used to go on Friday to the marketplace. And he would buy tomatoes in this store, and cucumbers in this store, and onions in that store, and lettuce in that store, and fish in that store. As you know, you could just buy it all in one store. He said, but my job as the Chacham is to go from store to store to store. I don't have a lot of money, but to show everybody in the town, I care about your store. I care about you. I want to see how you're doing. How else am I going to ask you about your kids, about your family, about your friends? How am I going to see if you need help? You know, the only way to do that is to go from door to door to door to people and people and people and people. He was the Chaver Ha'ir. Compare that with the type of religious leader who sits on a throne, and everybody comes to them. Some people even have to pay money to go see them. It's a completely different model. Yesterday was Tu B'Shvat. My family today is half Hasidic. You know that, right? I get all these videos of all these rebbes that are doing Tu B'Shvat celebrations. And let's have the common denominator by all of them. They all wear very fancy clothing. There's a special Tu B'Shvat clothing. They're all sitting in this huge room full of Hasidim. If you're a big Hasidut, fine. A small Hasidut, smaller. There's silver plates and goblets and cups and platters and da-da-da-da-da. There's all these men watching you. and you lead the songs, and you lead the this, and you lead the Divrei Torah, and blah, 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 all of that. Okay, fine. Then I saw a picture of Chacham Ovadia Yosef in his Tu B'Shvat Seder. It's him at his table with a really ugly tablecloth. I don't know who chose that one. And he's sitting there with some bowls of fruits, some vegetables, some cups. There's a big prominent bottle of Coca-Cola on the table. No offense, it's there. And his grandkids. And he's giving them brachot, slapping them on their cheeks. People are coming to shake his hand, to visit him, families. I'm thinking to myself, which kind of chacham was accessible to the people, who was really the friend of the people, who wasn't on some mighty ivory tower? You have to convince people to go see him. This week there was a famous Hasidic Rebbe that he went to Florida to go on vacation, or maybe Palm Springs, one of these places. My wife showed me a picture, and it's him and his secretary, his gabbai, his Hasidim, the guy who flies the plane. And I asked my wife, where is his wife? She started laughing. The Rabbi was laughing. What makes you think that he goes on vacation with his wife? And I was mortified, just like you. And she was like, you crazy, but you think that he's going on vacation with his wife? It's the same thing. You go on a Friday night dinner to a Hasidic Rebbe. You ever been to a Tish before? Huge bleachers, thousands of Hasidim. The Rebbe sitting at a big white table. He eats a little bit of fish, and they hand out the fish. He eats a little bit of the chicken, they hand out the chicken to everybody. He eats a little bit of this, they hand it out to everybody. And his wife, where is she? His kids, where are they? I don't know. So I don't know how to, I'm not judging Hasidim. So the model that we have, we're in this together. Leaders are part of the people. Leaders are together with the people, with their families, with their friends, with the Kehillat. So I want to tell you Divrei Rabbi Shimon Ben Netanel, Talmid Rabbi Yochanan Ben Zakkai, Zechuto Yagen Aleinu. And he says a sentence, and this sentence I need your help with, because I want you to compare it with what we just read from the encyclopedia. Says Rabbi Yosef Masas, Hu hayam mishevet Yehuda. He was from the tribe of Yehuda. Ken matzati katuv. That's what I found written in a book. Do you agree? What do we say in the encyclopedia? He was a Kohen. Kohen is from the tribe of Levi. Is he from Yehuda or he's from Levi?
Well, if he's a Kohen, he's supposed to be a Levi, not a Yehuda.
So what do we do? There's a holiday coming up soon. 1 month from 2 days ago. In Yerushalayim, 1 month from today. There's a man, a very famous man. He saved the Jewish people along with Esther HaMalka. What's his name? Mordechai, right? Mordechai. Yeah. By the way, I want you to go take out a Tanakh and look at the name of that person and tell me if the way we just said it is the way to pronounce it correctly. Go check. Just saying. Go check. I promise you that you're going to be surprised. You can take it out of the Chumash, the Tanakh. Go look. Don't be lazy. Yeah? Now, Mordechai, what does it say about him? Mordechai ha-Yehudi. Mordechai the Yehudi. What is a Yehudi?
You mean the meaning of it?
Yeah, what does it mean when it's Mordechai ha-Yehudi? Mordechai?
The Jew.
Guys, what is a Jew?
The way he looked, the way he dressed.
Okay, I tell you, there's glue, there's bubble gum stuck on your shoe. What is a Jew? My pillow a Jew.
He means someone who listens, who's humble, who's willing to listen to.
That's what it means? Then all the Jews I know are not Yehudim. What does it mean, Yehudi, Chevra? Yehudi means?
He was from the kingdom of Yehuda.
Thank you. He was from the tribe of Yehuda. Thank you very much. Whew, I almost got scared now. People are forgetting Hebrew.
Right, but if that's the case, and then this will not make you a Yehudi, you are a Levi. Right?
I'm not a Yehudi. I'm a Levi. I am a Levi. You're right. But now, today, they use the word Yehudi to refer to everybody. Then Yehudi means, okay. Mordechai, what did you say? Ish Yehudi, right? We said, what did you say? I just told you pasuk. Okay? Ben Mordechai Yehudi. Ben Yair, Ben Shim'i, Ben Kish, the son of Yair, the son of Shim'i, the son of Kish, Ish Yemini. What is an Ish Yemini? It does not mean that he was a right winger. Okay? It doesn't mean Yemini. What does it mean Yemini? You read this Megillah your whole life, every single Purim, twice on Purim, you read Mordechai has titles, and we don't. Nobody knew Mordechai Yehudi meant he was from Yehuda. Now we're telling me Ish Yemini. We don't know either. What are we doing?
A right-hand man.
I'm going to ask you, by the way, do one favor before I tell you anything. I'm going to ask you to do yourself a favor. Go to your bookcase, and all of the books that are not classic books, okay? So if it's not a Tanakh, it's not a Mishnah, it's not a Talmud, it's not a Rambam, and it's not a Shulchan Aruch. Any other book that's on your shelf, if it's written in the last 200 years, 300 years, just put it on the other side of your bookshelf and say, do not read until I finish reading the Tanakh. Just do it. Stop wasting your time reading this rabbi's guide to happiness, this one's guide to marriage, this one's garden of weeds of emunah, this one. Stop reading all those books. Take all of them, put them on a shelf. My book also, take it and put it on the bottom of the shelf. Yeah, all the way on the side. And then go back and read the Tanakh and make sure you understand what it says. What I'm going to tell you is very simple. To be a Talmid Chacham or Talmidah Chachama, you need to learn the Tanakh, the Mishnah, the Talmud, the Rambam, and the Shulchan Aruch. If you want to take a shortcut, study the Tanakh and the Mishneh Torah all the time, all day long, everywhere you go. And if you want, you can take another book of Musar along. If it's hard for you to extract Musar from the Tanakh, I think the Tanakh is a great Musar book. But if it's hard for you, so keep another book next to you. Keep a Mesilat Yesharim, keep a Pel Yoetz, keep a whatever book your heart is connected to. It could be Kadakemach, could be Menurat HaMaor, could be but something classic. Don't worry. Hamaspik Lo Avdei Hashem, Rabbeinu Avraham ben Rambam. You could take for yourself a Kuzari if that's a little too complicated. If you take something else, those are all you need. Stop reading other books. Just stop wasting your time. Once you finish the Tanakh, then you come back and read whatever you want to read. But the Torah, like we kiss it, we hug it, we dance with it, we don't know what it says inside of it. Mordechai Yehudi, yes, he's Ben Yair, Ben Shim'i, Ben Kish, Ish Yemini. What does it mean, Ish Yemini?
A right-hand man.
He was from the tribe.
Benjamin.
The tribe of Binyamin. Very good. But who here looked in the Tanakh, Mordechai's name? You looked? I saw you get up, you didn't look. Go look in the Chumash in the back, there's a Megillat Esther. Yeah? It means he's the tribe of Binyamin. Tell me something. Is he a Yehudi or he's an Ish Yemini?
Doesn't Yehudi just mean that he was from the kingdom of Yehuda? Like the southern kingdom that got conquered by Babel?
He can't be from the kingdom of Benjamin.
The next pasuk, if that was the case, then the next pasuk would be irrelevant. Yeah, what does the next pasuk say? Asher hogla miYerushalayim, im hagola asher hoglata, im Yechonia melech Yehuda. That he was from the exiles that were exiled from Jerusalem. They wouldn't have to tell us that. The Yehudi, in this I'm going to argue, doesn't mean that. So is he Yehudi or is he Yemini? You find the Megillat Esther? It's like 1240, something like that. So Mordechai, you can make a few cases. You can argue, like some of you did in the beginning, that by this time in history, Jewish people were called Yehudim, regardless of which tribe they came from. Why were we called Yehudim, by the way? Tell me why.
Shevet Yehuda.
Yeah, but if we're not for Shavi, I'm a Levi. Why am I called the Yehudi? Why?
Because it's a kingdom.
From Leah, that you said, Odeh Hashem.
No, but why? Why are Jews that are not Yehudim called Yehudim?
Because the leadership was Yehuda.
Okay, that could be the leadership. Tell me a simple answer.
Or Ivrim, then Israelim, and then Yehudim.
Okay, but I'm saying, Ivrim is general. Israelim is general. Yehudim is very specific to call a nation of 12 tribes after one tribe.
The kingdom of Judah was the reigning Jewish power.
So really, the tribe of you. Remember what happens by this point in history? What happens to the rest of the 10 tribes?
They get scattered.
They're gone. They're gone. There are no other tribes. So who's left? Yehuda, Binyamin, and a little bit of Kohanim and Leviim. Why are those the tribes that are left? Tell me why, geographically. Where do they all live?
Yerushalayim.
Yeah. Do you remember in Yeshayahu, in the book of Yeshayahu, when Sancheriv wants to destroy Yerushalayim, and King Chizkiyahu is the king of Yerushalayim? All of the population of Israel pretty much lived inside of the walls of the old city. Now the old city walls that we have today are huge. The old city then is like a little neighborhood. I don't know if you know. Nothing. I think some maybe they said I don't know a number off my head. They said 40,000 Jews. I don't know to tell you how many people.
We're not saying his name correctly.
What does it say in the book? Sorry, I'm pausing it.
It says, Ushmo Malchai.
Okay, spell me the word. Mem,
Mem.
Resh, Dalin, Chaf, Yod. What vowel under the Mem?
Under the Mem is Patach.
Patach. Under the Resh? Patach or Kamat?
No, Shva.
No.
Shva.
Where? Take a look. There's a little Tanakh floating here somewhere. A little one, a little blue one. See a little tiny blue Tanakh?
Is it this?
Show me.
It's not that.
It used to be on my desk. Okay, doesn't matter. Later. So I was telling you about Mordechai, Yehudi. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, come here over there. Keep that book open. Where did you find Mordechai for the first time?
Right.
That's chapter 2, verse 5, right? Can you tell me how it's spelled over here?
Oh, Mardachai.
You notice that underneath
Yes.
the mem is a kamatz,
Yes.
resh is a shva,
Yes.
daled is a kamatz, chataf kamatz,
Yes.
really?
Uh-huh.
Chaf is a patach, and a yod.
Yeah, it's spelled different.
Which really would be in Sephardic Hebrew, Mardochai. I don't know, Mordochai, whatever you want to read it. But you have to wonder how it got from here to here and what's going on in the.
It's completely different.
Yeah, I'm not an expert now here in this area of the Megillah. I'm just letting you know, interesting things happen when you look inside of the book itself. Yeah, just look inside of the book. Now, Mordechai, we mentioned Yehudi. So Yehudim, you can argue that Jews are called Yehudim, regardless of where they come from. You can make the argument? Okay. Give me a proof of that from Megillat Esther. Leave your Megillah open. Okay, very good, Ochanan. LaYehudim hayta orav v'simcha v'sason v'ikar. Very good. In the end of the Megillah, it says that the Jewish people had happiness and joy and light. Very good. So you see that all of Am Yisrael were called Yehudim. Were all the from tribe of Yehuda? No. One more proof. This one is harder. Anyone else know Megillat Esther well? When the Jewish people start to kill the people of Shushan, very many non-Jews start to do something. What do they start to do? Look towards the end where the war is. Yeah, ורבים מעמי הארץ מתייהדים. כי נפל פחד מרדכי עליהם, פחד יהודים עליהם. That many of the non-Jews began to מתייהדים. They began to become Yehudim because they were afraid of Mordechai and the Jews. What does it mean, mityahadim? that seems to be a verb of becoming Jewish. People were converting to Judaism. They were terrified of dying in the war. They were becoming Jewish. We don't talk a lot about this part of the Megillah, where people joined Am Yisrael in order to save themselves from the war that the Jewish people were fighting in the story of Purim. It's very interesting, mityahadim. I don't know where else we really use this word. At least in halachic literature, we don't say mityahadim. We say mitgairim, but mityahadim is a very interesting word. So you could make an argument, very simply, that Mordechai was just Jewish, but the tribe that he was from was Binyamin. There's another understanding here, and there is his Tanakh sources to this, that Mordechai's father and mother side, he was half from Yehuda and half from Binyamin, and that he was giving credit here to both sides of his family. It's interesting. Chida reads a lot into this. The Chida tries to read into this the story of Esther, and Esther having to kill Haman, and the relationship with Agag, and that was never killed, Agag and Amalek, and all these things. I have a class online somewhere, some Kabbalistic class on Megillat Esther. In one of those days that we didn't have what to learn, we did a Chida on Megillat Esther. And if you should see there, that he reads a lot into these words. How do we get there? So, Huya Mishevet Yehuda. He comes from the tribe of Yehuda. He said he saw that written in a book. Let's assume the encyclopedia is correct, that he was a Kohen. So we can give two answers. One is that he was not really from Yehuda, but he was just a Yehudi. And maybe he didn't tell us where he saw it in the book or which book said it. Number one. Number two, it could be that he was a Kohen, but his mother was from Yehuda, and he's still from the tribe of Yehuda. For example, I'm not a Levi, right, Obadiah? I'm not a Yehudi, I'm a Levi. But on my mother's side, I'm a Yehudi. What I mean?
Sakta is from the tribe of Yehuda.
Yeah, my mother's side are direct descendants of David HaMelech, at least according to their family tradition. They're called Ben David. And therefore, I'm actually a Yehudi for real on that side. On my father's side, for sure not. My father's side, his mother was a daughter of a Kohen, and his father was a Levi. So we have no Yehudi on that side. On my mother's side, we're Yehudim. So maybe you could say about me that I'm a Levi who's also a Yehudi. You could say that?
But in the time of Beit HaMikdash, B'ezrat Hashem, that's going to be changed into, remember what one Shevet shouldn't marry the other.
Okay, with that we've spoken about in the laws of Mashiach. Now I'm not worried about that over there. Now I'm just worried about what we're going to do here. So the encyclopedia says Kohen. Here it says, give me a reason why you might not think that Rabbi Shimon Ben Netanel is a Kohen. What was the last Chacham that we studied? Do you remember who he was? The last Chacham? In this class, the last Chacham that we studied about, the other student of
Rabbi Yosef Kohen.
Rabbi Yosef Kohen. What was his name?
Rabbi Yosef Kohen.
Rabbi Yosef Kohen. If he was a Kohen, we would call him Rabbi Shimon Ben Netanel HaKohen, no? So maybe it makes more sense what Rabbi Yosef Masas is saying, that he's from the tribe of Yehuda. If it was a Kohen, they would tell you. I don't have an answer for you. I can't tell you whether he is really Yehudi, he's a Kohen, if he's half a Yehuda, half a Kohen, I don't know. V'haya chotno, he was...
The Megillah gives us the lineage of Mordechai, Ben Yehudi, Ben...
But I'm talking about Rabbi Shimon Ben Netanel.
Okay.
Yeah? V'haya chotno shel Rabban Gamliel HaZaken. Now this is a complicated word, Chevre. What does it mean to be the chotno of somebody?
To.
What?
Married to. I mean, he gave him his daughter or his son.
Okay, so in modern Hebrew, they use the word chotno as hachatan shelo, his son-in-law. That's how they understand it. Yes, in Israel, remember I told you, be careful that Israelis don't speak Hebrew.
Thank you.
No, not you. In the Torah, we have the word choten. Where does the Torah use the word choten? It's coming up now, Chav. It's coming up now. Where this week's parasha? Tell me. Yitro. Yitro is what? He is Choten Moshe, meaning he is the son-in-law of Moshe, right? Huh? Chini, if you know something, say something. That's the rule, like on the subway.
He's the father-in-law.
He's a father-in-law. So see, that's why you can't trust Israelis with Hebrew. You understand what I'm telling you? Because if you read the Torah like an Israeli, all of a sudden Yitro becomes the son-in-law of Moshe Rabbeinu. Choten Moshe means the father-in-law of Moshe Rabbeinu. But now I have to struggle. Is Rabbi Yosef using the word chotno the Israeli way or the Torah way?
Very possible it's not the Torah way.
We know from the encyclopedia that he married the daughter of Rabban Gamliel Zaken. So likely he's using it in the Israeli way. ומסתמה שהיו הוא ואביו נכבדים מאוד שהתחתן עם הנשיא רבן גמליאל הזקן, זכרותו יגן עלינו אמן. Rabbi Yosef Masas makes a very big assumption. Rabban Gamliel, the elder, is the prince of the Jewish people. He's the prince of the Jewish people. I'm sure in the last few years, something I don't understand about Americans? Americans celebrate a holiday called 4th of July. What is the 4th of July? Independence Day. Independence from who?
Britain.
From Britain, right? From the royal family. Yet,
Colonial.
anything that happens in the royal family in the United Kingdom, the Americans spend their whole life on the TV watching every little detail that happens. It doesn't matter which news channel you're going to turn to, they're analyzing the dress they wore, the suit he had, the way they stepped, which horse they took. Americans are obsessed with the people they claimed independence from. I hope this doesn't get me in trouble with the Shiviti UK Chevra. Okay, I know this is I'm a little bit of a complicated situation. Now I'm in San Diego. So this was taught in the Shiviti Ben Midrash of San Diego. In the United Kingdom, I will be more respectful. Okay? It's very interesting. Some people are... one thing you know for sure. Can someone from the royal family marry out of the royal family? No.
It's unusual.
No.
They have to relinquish their title.
Yeah, it's a really big no-no. Yeah, it's a really big no-no. This has happened this last year, 2 years ago. There was a princess from Japan. Do you remember what I'm talking about? She was a princess or he was a prince. Remember what I'm talking about? Does anyone remember what I'm saying? He was from the royal family. She was from the royal family. One of them, I think she was from the royal family. She was, right? He was, and he married somebody from a super wealthy, super wealthy. I mean, probably more wealthy than the royal family of Japan. But in order to get married, they had to relinquish their royal status, because you can't marry a peasant. Now, in Am Yisrael, it wasn't that bad, okay? But you definitely had to be somebody to marry into the royal family. You don't just get to be a nobody and marry the royal family. Usually, it doesn't work that way. So Rabbi Yosef... What?
They were chashuvim, that's why they married them.
So Rabbi Yosef Masah says, even though we don't know so much about Rabbi Shimon Ben Netanel, either the Kohen or the Yehudi, we don't know. But we can assume that he must have been a very important person, because he got his son married to the daughter of Rabban Gamliel Zaken. So this is like investigative work. It's what they call hearsay, or it's really it's not actual evidence. We don't have proof that his father was anybody special. We could only assume that the shidduch didn't happen like in a bar somewhere, chas v'shalom. This happened by two families that wanted to marry into each other, and it must have been that the family of Rabbi Shimon Ben Netanel was important enough that they were willing to marry into the family. That Rabban Gamliel's family was willing to marry into them. On top of that, he also had his own yichus, his own value. What was his value? He was the main student of Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai. And I think this part is important. I'm going to end with this. I want to do Shulchan Aruch before we call it a day. I didn't realize what time it was. I want us to remember that in the world today, you have a lot of this conversation about yichus. All the people tell you, oh, you know who I am? I'm the great-grandson I'm the son of my great Zaidi, Bubby's uncle was, and they tell me all kinds of things. And I always have two answers to that. The first is...
Somebody tell you that their, I don't remember, was the first word to fasten your mind.
So that wasn't a good yichus for me. Yeah, it was for him. So, tell them. Chacham Elchana would like to share something. So we were... no. You see a person and you say, wow, your great-grandfather was this great tzaddik, and look at you, you're like a pig walking on 2 feet. So your poor grandfather, he's right rolling over in his grave to have a grandson like you. Or, wow, you're such a tzaddik. Who cares who your grandfather was? You yourself are so righteous. I mean, why do you have to brag about your grandparents when you yourself have your own actions? So the only argument I would have with Rabbi Yosef Masas It could be that Rabbi Shimon Ben Netanel really, I don't know, maybe Netanel was not a very chashuv person. But Rabbi Shimon made himself into a Talmid Chacham. And it's not going to be the first person. Who else was a student of Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai who made himself into somebody? Rabbi Eliezer ben Hukunus, you remember that? He left his father's home, they didn't know how to read and write. He went and made himself into a Talmid Chacham. Yeah? Now, Resh Lakish, I'm not talking about this generation. Yeah? Rabbi Akiva, by the way, who's part of this whole story, Rabbi Akiva is also like that. Rabbi Akiva ben Yosef. Rambam tells us ben Gerim Haya. He came from a family of people who converted to Judaism. Whether it's his father or his general ancestry, we don't know. We know that Rabbi Akiva, when he was a young man, hated Torah scholars, hated them. He said, "Mi telni Talmid Chacham, who will give me a Torah scholar? Venashchenu, and I will bite him, kachamo, like a donkey." Very good, Obadiah. And the Chachamim say, "Why like a donkey? Why do you have to bite people like a donkey? What's so special about a donkey?" Yeah, Chachamim say when a donkey bites, I never was bit by a donkey, Baruch Hashem. By parrots, by but the donkey, it never happened to me. Baruch Hashem. Now I'm afraid to go back to Madeira. I don't know what So, someone gets bit by a donkey, the donkey grabs, the Chachamim say, until it cracks the bone. The donkey bites you, let's go. I mean, that's how much he hated Torah scholars. He hated Torah scholars, he just want to break them to their bones. Now, there's obviously agadic value to the story. It's not just donkeys, dogs. There's a lot you could read in bones of Torah scholars. A lot of things you can read into the story. I'm not here to teach you Agadah right now. But very simply, this is also a generation of young Chachamim that are stepping up to the plate on their own. And so I'm not arguing with Rabbi Yosef Mesas. He's making an assumption that he came from a very important family. And that's why he married into an important family. And I'm thinking, just me, Yonatan Halevy, I don't have anything on Rabbi Yosef Mesas, that this is part of a generation of young Chachamim that are rising up to the plate and making people out of themselves from families that weren't necessarily such famous families. And I think that we can walk away with a little bit of hope. We all are, from the tribes of Am Yisrael, we're all part of Am Yisrael, but at the end of the day, our yichus, our lineage, it starts with us. It depends on us. It doesn't matter who your grandfather was if you're a nobody. It doesn't matter who your mother was it matters who you are. And if you're somebody, okay, so then there's also added benefit if you're continuing a legacy of something. But don't forget to be a somebody just because you came from somewhere. Where you come from doesn't matter as much as who you are right now.